Hi there, Ronnie here. Amber's Night coming at you with this final video. I'm redoing this video. I just felt I should get it more spot on, and it's about my worst moments as a player. I haven't had that many really bad experiences. I've had some ones where I've kind of went, "Ugh!" But I haven't really had any that would fall under the worst category. I mean, I've had some frustrating ones. Where you just don't think you're getting anywhere playing. But that's not the same as a bad experience. That's just a really testing one as a player. But both my really bad experiences, and one of them actually didn't actually turn into a game because the situation was so bad right from the off. Both involved the same GM. Now, the first one, which actually wasn't a game, was a game of Vampire the Masquerade. Now, I have only played one game of Vampire, this one, and I've never played it again simply because of this guy. I decided I was going to play someone a little different. I was playing a female character, she was gay, because I wanted to play someone a little different. The GM really didn't seem to like the fact that I was playing a gay character. He seemed uncomfortable. Maybe he wasn't, but he seemed that way. And I think that's always been in the back of my mind. It might have been the reason for my other video. It might have been one of the other things ticking in the back there. So he was never really comfortable with that, or at least I perceived it that way. But the real problem is one that I think is a weakness in the game system, but only if a GM decides to go with it and weaken the game. And that is the idea that older vampires can control those they sire, or those of a younger bloodline. So what happened was, whenever we as the players wanted to do something that the GM hadn't counted on, or wasn't happy about, or would have taken his scenario in directions he wasn't ready for, an elder vampire would conveniently show up and say, no, you will not do this, you will do that. And of course, us being of a younger generation, we were compelled to obey, and it railroaded the scenario completely. What is the point of role-playing in that sort of situation? Utterly, utterly banal. I played for that one night, and I just got so bored. So bored with it. Completely. I was just so bored. The other one that, and this other one happened after, really should have learned my lesson, but it happened after. We were going to play a game of Marvel Superheroes. I'd never played it before. I've played it since and I've enjoyed it, but I'd never played it before. And we were going to create characters, so I said, okay, then doing all my stats, and I'm now getting all my powers. And to be honest, it was a fairly eclectic mix of powers. It really wasn't putting together. But the GM is there. He's sitting there, he's watching us do this, and he's not saying a thing. So I finished with my character, which he's watched me create. And at the end of that, he turns around and says, well, actually, I'm wanting everyone to play mutants. Now, as I'm always doing, when I create a character, I am immediately thinking, oh, I've got that power. How do I get that power? I'm creating, as most roleplay, 99.99 ad infinitum, players will do. You're thinking about your character, you're thinking about your background, you're thinking about how you got those powers, you're thinking about the whole story that got you to this point. Now, if he'd said at the start, I want mutants, that would have been fine. Because said, okay, you're looking for a mutant, right? So we've got this power, well, hold on a minute. That power really doesn't fit. How about, why don't I exchange that power for that power? Because it's more in keeping with the power he's got there. And we could have said, well, okay, yeah, that'll do. And that would be a mutating, that would be his mutant power, and he would have perhaps different, perhaps he maybe had different manifestations of that central power. And that would have been fine. But no. So he said, yes, we're playing mutants. Okay, I said, where are you setting this? And he said, Genosha. Now, for those who don't know the Marvel Universe, Genosha is a island holiday resort that basically imprisons mutants, puts collars around their necks which restrict their mutant abilities, and they're essentially used as slave labour. This is the guy who, with Vampire, wouldn't let us do anything he wasn't prepared for without putting an Elder Vampire to take us off. All the players looked at each other and we all were thinking the same thing. We didn't even have to voice it. We knew we were going into that Genosian prison and we were never leaving. Because no matter how creative our idea, it would never have happened if it had even, if it had strayed a little from his railroad scenario, he would have shut it down. And we all said no. We refused point blank to be involved. So that was it. That never happened. And that's really the worst games, and it's a game and a half really, that I've had. As I say, I've had a couple of frustrating games where it's just been very difficult. The game has been very difficult, deliberately very difficult. So it's been a real frustration to get through. But that's not the same as being a bad game. That's just a tough game, and you're trying to get through it. Couple of examples. We did my friend and I played AD&D First Edition. We went through the Tomb of Horrors adventure, which we found out later was not actually designed to be survivable. And we actually survived, but it was 3 nights of really tough, frustrating game, because it's a very tough, frustrating dungeon with a lot of traps, and you've got to really be thinking on your feet the whole time. And it was a very tough scenario. It wasn't a bad scenario, it was just really tough. Deliberately so. And the fact that we got out of there with some treasure, with our lives, having not taken too much damage and none of us actually dying, we considered it to be a big win. A friend of mine ran his only time he's run a game. He ran a dungeon crawl where he pretty much front-loaded this first long corridor with 2 traps in about the first 30 feet. And those 2 traps pretty much killed the game. Because our dungeoneering party inched down the corridor from then on in, because we'd hit these 2 traps really early on. So we inched it. We went 5 feet by 5 feet by 5 feet, and we were checking everywhere. floors, walls, ceilings. We went the whole hall. We were doing search rolls everywhere, and then moving on to the next thing and rolling. And he couldn't get, because it was his first ever game, he couldn't get the momentum to go. And by the time we actually got to the end of this very long corridor, the night was pretty much over, and we never got back to the game. So that was a frustrating game for a lot of reasons. I could probably do a whole video on that. But worst experiences, pretty much with that one GM who, you know, out of protection for him, he will remain nameless. I don't like to name anyone on these things. But yeah, those are the worst experiences. Those are my worst player moments. And I'm happy to say the vast majority of the time have been somewhere between not bad to yeah to ooh, that was good to really, really good. So I think I've been blessed in that way. So yeah, there we go. My worst player moments. Thank you for watching and listening.